Hello, welcome back to my podcast. I Choose Me. Today, I wanted to talk to everyone about my first love. What does that even mean when someone says their first love? Okay. Um, I think about the men that I've dated, the ones I've had relationships with, etc. And I think about my friends and I listen to them and they've listened to me as we've talked about the different men in our lives and how they have affected us, how they've changed us, etc. And I hear a lot of times women, their story always sounds very similar. You know, I think a lot of times after a relationship, or more so as you get older, start to have this yearning or longing for maybe something that you don't have, or maybe you were in a relationship and you begin to feel empty inside. You have this emptiness and you want to fill it. So you start dating. I think I was, the last couple of years, I have went into something like a serial dating. Like I was just dating. Sometimes you date because you want to go out. Sometimes you date because, look, I want to go this place, this place. Sometimes you date because you're looking for companionship. Some people date because they're looking for a husband and they're not with the husband anymore. But I think a lot of people date because they feel this emptiness for women. It's like this hole that is there that is needing something to be poured into it. I found myself dating a lot, and I was meeting different men because I date men, and I would date them. And then even if I had a relationship with them, I would still find myself being incomplete or even lonelier than when I was just single, which is very weird to me in a way, but it's really familiar to a lot of women. A lot of women who have been married or who are married have recognized that lonely feeling and how different it is than a regular lonely feeling. It's very weird to feel lonely and be married or be in a relationship and the person be sleeping right next to you and you be completely alone. You feel like you're completely doing everything on your own, or this person is not getting you or understanding you or empathizing with you or just here with you emotionally, physically, mentally, etc. You know, and I felt like that in relationships. I felt like that in my marriage. I felt like that in relationships in which I dated. And then you go out and the relationship ends and you go out seeking again. You're going like, I got to get fulfilled. My cup is not full. It's empty. I need somebody to fill that cup up. So while I was writing this book, I was writing a lot about myself, analyzing myself, and I started thinking about, when did I first have this feeling? Like I started going through all my relationships and I went back to my first love, my first high school boyfriend. And everybody who knows me know that I love this boy. I talk about him all the times, And I thought about that relationship, and it took me a very long time to get over that person. And I tried to analyze and think, what did it take me so long? Why did I place so much value on this relationship and this person? And I thought about the way that the relationship started out. I was very young, and I talk about it in my book, I Choose Me. I was young. I was about 15 years old. And when I was in this relationship with this person, for me, being a 15-year-old girl and your mother is a single mom, your parents are divorced, your father is not there. He's, you don't get to see him that often. I had went through a situation where the father who raised me, they divorced from my parent, and I saw him maybe a few times a year, very seldom. And then and I talk about in a book, I found out when I was 13 years old that I had that my father who raised me was not my biological father. So you can imagine how hard that must have been on a 13-year-old girl. So I had that situation with me. But the father that I had fell in love with was the one who had raised me all those years, and now, I didn't get to see him in my life, hardly. And a lot of it might have been positive because the relationship that he had with my mother was not the best for our home environment. So I'm looking at examining while I'm in this book, writing this book, trying to figure out, where did this loneliness feeling come from? When did I first start feeling it? And I went through all the way back to my first love, my first relationship. And I thought about how easy it was for him to get me. I was very shy. I didn't feel really good about myself. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I was just coming into my own, you know, and this man, attractive man comes to me, he's nice to me, and young man, because he was a year older than myself. And he was just telling me all these nice things about myself, telling me I'm beautiful, telling me smart, I'm this. And a lot of times as parents, I don't think we realize that we don't always tell our girls that. We don't, if it's a mother, you might not always remember to tell your daughter. You assume you did, or you forget, or even some people, they think they tell their kids they love them, but in all reality, they don't really tell them every day that I love you, or every time you get off the phone, to get in that habit of it. You just make the assumption that the child knows that you love them. So for me, I don't feel like or remember us always being a family where it was constantly, I love you, love you, love you. I didn't all the time feel that way. So I meet this person and he's telling me these things about myself that I didn't even believe about myself. So you become infatuated with that person. But the funny thing about it was that he as I began to build confidence in myself, the more I relied on myself for my happiness and my confidence, then what he would do is he would go and he would take it away. So if I started to believe that I was beautiful on my own, then he would have conversations with me, or he would say things to me to make it as if I wasn't beautiful because it wasn't coming from him. So if it's coming from myself and I say, oh, I'm beautiful. Oh, no, you're not that beautiful. You got, your head is big, or you got, your nose is like this, or your eyes are like this, or you have a small face in the center. And it would be very weird to me, I was 15, because one minute he's telling me I'm beautiful, and then the next minute, when I'm saying it myself and feeling it myself, then he tells me no, no, because he made it seem as if everything had to come from him. So for love, for happiness, all of it had to come from him. So when he left, imagine how that must have felt for a 15-year-old girl. Or when he didn't want to see me or be with me, how that must have felt, because I placed all that value of how I felt about myself in the hands of him and let him be the creator of those. And that every time I tried to think it on my own, then he reminded me that I was not those things unless he told me that I was. And that was what a relationship was. And for a lot of people, that's what a lot of relationships look like. You see your kids starting off and they're doing things. Young girls, they're very impressionable. So, I started thinking about, that loneliness feeling and how that relationship kind of set the pace for my relationships after that, dating and, the way we having sex before I was ready. I talked about that in my book. The fact that when I went to lose my virginity, I did it because of the fact of losing that person who's telling me all these good things about myself. He's saying all these nice things about me. So in order to keep him, then I have to exchange sex with him. And I started to realize when I was writing this book, the relationship and how I viewed intimacy and how I viewed sex. And how I viewed that was a connection between the two, and the fact that intimacy is not always sex. Intimacy can be love language. Intimacy can be sharing and hugging and holding. You can have intimacy between the same sex and be heterosexual. You can have intimacy between your girlfriends and they be supporting you and rooting you on. You can have intimacy between your parents, etc. But a lot of us think that it's only something that is the exchange between a spouse relationship type thing. But you can have intimacy, and you go on. I went in these relationships seeking that loneliness feeling was making me want to go from relationship to relationship, bouncing, trying to fill that void and feel that emptiness inside that I was feeling, you know. And a lot of times we get in these relationships. I was definitely one of those people. I get in a relationship with one person, I break up, I'm in a relationship with somebody else, or I'm seeking to go be with somebody else because I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to feel what it was like to not have that intimacy, not have that relationship, not have that person caring for me. I put it in the arms and the soul of another person. I said that person is in control of my happiness. That person determines if I'm beautiful. That person determines if I'm worthy, etc. Because my first relationship, or what I thought was my first relationship, was the one in which I gave up my virginity and that exchange. So I started to think to myself about the relationship that I had before him. And that relationship was with my father, my father who raised me. I started to think about that. My father's relationship with his wife, or my mother, was very different from the relationship he had with me. And it wasn't a perfect relationship with me and him either. But there was something that I did love about it. I loved that he looked at me individually, that he saw me on the same playing field as a man. My father was very intelligent. I don't believe I would have got my doctorate degree or done as good in school if it wasn't for him. So he always put me in the equal playing field as the man, and this is your expectations. This is what you need to do. You need to do this schoolwork. You need to, read these books. You need, giving me Toni Morrison books, Maya Angelou books, all of those things at a very young age, definitely shaped me into the woman that I am today. And with his relationship with my mother caused him, have to leave the house and not be there. The relationship he had with me had become severed. So in our reality, that was my first love. And I talk about that in my book because I say a lot of times when a baby is born for a man, it is a love story. The child chooses the father and it creates a love story. And the love story can either be a tragedy or it can be the most wonderful, pleasant thing ever. And for a lot of us women, especially Black women and Black men, because we're sisters and brothers, we've grown up under the same roof, we did not have a father in the home, and my father left at 11 years old, so hearing those words from a man, I'm beautiful, you're smart, you're intelligent, all of these wonderful words I had not heard. I did not hear those words. So I was, if they said them, I didn't remember them. So that when somebody came into the picture, another man came into the picture telling me those beautiful words and saying these nice things about me, I was ready to do whatever that person wanted me to do. And I want you guys, I'm telling you this as, as another parent, because it's really, really important for men and women to know that this is how women think, young girls think. This is what happens. These are what's shaping. When you're wondering what's going on with your teenager, why did this person turn out like this? Look at that love story. Look at that first love. And when I'm not always talking about the person who he or she gave their virginity to, but the relationship that they formed between their mother and their father. So with the boys, it would be with the mother. What type of relationship that they have with the mother? A lot of women are taking the fall for things that their mother did to them, to males and so forth, giving them and neglecting them, doing too much and not allowing them to grow, etc. All of those things can shape a child and an individual. So I want you to think today. I want you to think about your first love. I want you to think when you're talking to your girlfriends and you're venting about that guy and what he did, and you're talking about how you're still the one has to go at night and go to bed by yourself and go to sleep and fall asleep alone, and you feel empty. Notice that pattern. Notice how you feel empty sometimes with him and without him. You go from one relationship to the next relationship. You bounce back and forth, going to the next one, trying to fill that void. But when did you begin to form that void? When did that hole start to become deeper? When did it expand? And a lot of times you'll see that it was in the beginning with your parents. And, nobody wants to, that's fighting words. Tell a Black woman you got daddy issues. But I never thought I did. But when I went to examine and I was writing that book, I Choose Me, I realized I did. So I want you guys to think about that. I can't wait till I get this book picked up and published. It's burning, a hole in my computer because I so want y'all to read this and read this book. It's driving me crazy. I'm still writing all these query letters. I made a goal to myself for 60-something queries that I would send out before I decide to self-publish. Maybe I need to push it to 100. I don't know, or whatever, but we'll see. But I'm just praying up that I will get the privilege to publish this book because it's so phenomenal. I love it. And I'm not just saying it because I wrote it. It really is a good book. Like, it's phenomenal. And the people who have read it have loved it. So, tune in. Please subscribe because this is my YouTube. So I want you to subscribe. That would be wonderful. And just choose yourself, ladies. It's not about you not hating on nobody by loving yourself. You are not a man eater because you choosing to love yourself. You are not neglecting your children because you loving yourself first. So I just want you to know that. Okay. And have a wonderful Sunday. Bye-bye.